These thoughts up in my head, things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here.
I got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm your host, Ed, and as always, we are keeping our faith in a world full of chaos. Welcome back. I know it's been a while. I haven't been recording, but I am here, and I got some stuff I want to talk about, so we're going to make sure that we do that. Overall, I just want to say thank you, and if you're new here, we try to do our best to keep our faith in a world full of chaos, and things are getting a little crazy. Pick your poison or what you want that to be. But at the same time, we're going to do our best to keep our faith in God, keep moving forward, and more importantly, just, wear that full armor and keep our faith through everything. And so today's episode is called Anxiously Anxious. It's a tough thing to say, but you'll understand it as we jump into it. So we're not going to waste any time. I got a question for you. What do you do when you feel like anxiety is always winning? How do you feel when it seems like no matter what you do or no matter how much you're trying to navigate through life and be the best version of you that you can be, it just feels like anxiety is taking control and winning? That's how I've been feeling, I would say, the past month and a half or so. There are days where I feel really good about myself, and then there are days where I feel like my mind is just going crazy. And I got like crazy side effects from anxiety. Like sometimes my head start feeling weird, or I feel like overly exhausted. And it just seems like no matter what I do, no matter how I try to navigate, it just feels like it wins. But the reality is that anxiety can't win. Anxiety is not something that is victorious. It is not a weapon that can destroy you. It is something that we may deal with, but it's something we can overcome daily. And the biggest thing I want you to remember is very simple, that like you are not your anxiety. You do not identify with your anxiety. All the things you're worrying about, all the things that you're wondering, what if, all of the doubts and things of that nature, that is fabricated lies in your mind. Because 90% of the stuff that you're thinking about doesn't even exist. The truth is within. You have to peel back the layers of anxiety and ask yourself what's real. And when you find out what's real, then you basically got to dead all the other stuff. Because if you don't, you allow that to then grow in your mind. And then you start believing a lie more than you believe your truth. And then once you hear the truth, it becomes so much more confusing for you to even consider that that is an option. But you always have to remember that your God is bigger than your anxiety, your worries, and your fears. Therefore, you don't need to identify with it because God's already got it taken care of. And that's something we're going to talk about. We dive deep into this. So, when we think about common issues of anxiety, of course, it kind of stems from the what ifs. We start to worry a little bit. We wonder about certain things. We play scenarios in our head. As humans, we are so powerful with what we do that we can create stories and make them so believable that we start believing that more than we start actually believing our truth. And the more we do that, the more we realize, oh crap, like I'm having a hard time trying to separate what's real versus what's fake. It it drives us crazy a little bit, I would say. I know it drives me crazy. I don't know about you. And a lot of people, there's stuff out there for it, medications and stuff, and therapy, which I would strongly suggest. If you've never been to a therapist, go to therapy because you have traumas and healing that you need to do that you don't know that you have. You've just been taught that you got to be strong. So let me make that point. Go to therapy, get a therapist, talk to someone about what you are dealing with. I'm not saying you're not a strong human being. I'm just saying that you're going to need help getting through this, because as strong as you think you are, you're really going to uncover a lot of weaknesses. And through those weaknesses, you got to ask yourself, do I want to heal or do I want to live like this forever? Because you're not meant to survive through this life. You're meant to thrive through this life. And if you just spend your whole life going through survival mode, you're never really going to see your true potential. So go talk to a therapist, sit down and actually lay out everything that keeps you anxious, and then heal. Because you cannot heal others if you are not healed yourself. So that's my disclaimer for that. Anyway, let's talk about what anxiety looks like. Now, there are moments where I'm not gonna hold you. I'll just be yesterday, I was in the store. I'm walking around the aisle to go get some snacks, which I probably shouldn't have been getting, but whatever. So I'm going to get some snacks, mind my business. And like my mind just shifted. It was almost as if I recognized where I was. It was like, oh, you're in the store. You weren't even thinking about it. And in my mind's like, worry. And there was no need to. It's what I've conditioned myself to do, unfortunately, which is something that I'm working on. But it can strike whenever. And that's the worst part about it, is that you could be having a great day and then your mind's like, we haven't really thought about anything. Think about it now. And you're like, what? Like, I don't want to. And then by that time, you're all over the place, right? So it's very, very uncomfortable. There are these terrible like side effects that come with that. So there's these nerve firings, which feels like your brain is being shocked, basically, which I've had. So if I don't take my whatever it is, Lexapro, escitalopram, whatever it's called. If I don't take that, it definitely messes with my mind. It's a crazy side effect, and then I'm on the couch all day, basically just brain rotting and watching TV or scrolling through TikTok or something like that. There's these random moods where it seems like no matter what you're going through, you're just irritated. You are angry at everything. You're angry at everybody. Things aren't going the way you want them to be able to, and then it just feeds more and more into this thing, right? You're irritable. It's just you don't want to be around people. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want people to come to you. The smallest, like the minor inconveniences become major problems in your head because you're dealing with this, and you're just like, I don't want to deal with it, but I feel like no matter what I do, it's just there, right? There's also this weird feeling, and I want to kind of talk about this a little bit, of where you feel inadequate and like you feel defeated. You start to feel like you're not important, you're not worthy, you're not, good as everybody else. And then it feels like no matter what you try to do to get out of that rut, you just continue to feel more negative. You feel like everybody else around you is winning and you're not. You feel like you're just not the key piece. That can have some major implications on your life. And I'm here to tell you that just because those thoughts are happening, that is not your truth. You don't have to continue to go down this path of feeling defeated, because we all know who has the ultimate victory. And if you're made in God's image, and if you're following his word, and if you're following his path, how can you ever be defeated if he's already defeated all of the things that you're going to go through? I mean, when you really break down who God is and what God does, they killed this man and he defeated death. So it's like, if he's defeating death, that's major. So I think he would be able to help me defeat anxious thoughts, worries, um, doubts, this lack of confidence in oneself. I think he can help me overcome those things. But if I don't trust him, it can't happen. If I don't believe in him, it won't work. And if I don't follow him, then I'll always be lost. So it becomes a thing of really understanding what these thoughts are and taking those thoughts captive and surrendering them to Christ. How do you do that? How does one, how do you deal with overcoming anxiety through everyday life? Obviously, I talked to you about therapy. I definitely want you to talk to somebody about it. Talk with other people who have or deal with anxious thoughts. Get a feel for what they do, how they feel, what they go through daily, when they feel anxiety hit or they have anxiety attacks, or even worse so, panic attacks or anything like that. How do they embrace that? My number one suggestion, if you were asking me the best way to deal with your anxiety, the best thing you could do is give it to Christ. And he tells you that. Actually, he says it in his word. In 1 Peter 5:7, he says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. So when you think about the word cast, what does that mean? I looked that up, of course, because there's so many different definitions. But in this case, as far as like casting something onto someone, or casting your anxiety to God. What we're really doing is, and what cast is defined as, is an act of throwing something forcefully. So you are forcefully throwing all this anxiety and all of these fears and all of these thoughts to God Himself and saying, I don't want to deal with them. I know that all of these thoughts that are making me feel anxious, that is not of your will for me. I don't want them. I don't like that this attack is happening. I'm going to cast all of that to you. So I'm forcefully throwing my doubt, my anxiety, my fears, my worries, all those things that are driving me further away from you. I am throwing them at you and saying, Lord, help me with this. And you have the green light to do this because He specifically tells you to do it. Like Pastor Mitchell from 2819 Church will tell you, it's not a suggestion if it's in the word. It is, this is what we need to do. So and I get it. I know you're not like perfect in everything, and sometimes you try to fight it on your own, because I do, and I know that I don't need to do that. But from me to you, as one person who is working through this, who's trying to better himself, and for a person who wants to see you do well, we can cast our anxiety on Him. And the biggest reason why is because He tells us He cares for us. Now, what does care mean in this situation? So I looked up the definition of care, and care says that look after and provide the needs for. If you got parents, your parents care for you, right? They want what's best for you. They can do so much, and there's some things that they have to let you experience on your own, right? And so the care of a parent is so important. The care of a friend is so important. The care of healthy relationships that have boundaries and respect, like that, is important. The care that God gives us is so magnificent, because there are things that I know that we go through that God will pull us out of, and we're looking at Him like, you pulled me out of that. I was I don't know if I, Lord, I didn't even call on you. Like that's the sad part. I didn't even call on you in that situation, and yet you were like, come here. I told you not to do that. You did it anyway. And it's just like, how are you saving me like this? You literally died for me. You cared for me so much that you gave your life up for me. You took a risk on someone who may never turn to you. You took a risk on someone who may blatantly see the truth and decide to live the lie. You gave your life up for people who may never believe in you. And you would do it again. That's the crazy part. Cause I know people that be like, man, I ain't going through that. But that's why God's so amazing. He did that for us. And the thing is if He cares that much, why wouldn't you cast your anxiety? Why wouldn't you come talk to Him? Why wouldn't you build a relationship? Why wouldn't you have these moments where you can see Him and say, you know what? I need you. Not just when things are bad, but even when things are good. When everything in life is hitting and you like, man, this is great. Don't ever forget who got you there. Because it would be a shame to achieve all that success knowing that God gave it to you and then act like it never happened. Because as quick as you got it, it can quickly disappear. And the crazy part is when you're up, down, stuck in the middle, wherever you are, the number one person that will be with you through all of that is God Himself. So why would you turn your back on the person that's always going to be there to back you up? So, I mean, that's just something you got to think about. And with this anxiety, like we know, and there's other scriptures that are out there that talk about how to deal with anxiety. I mean, it goes to show that, we're human. We deal with things. We deal with emotions. So, like I said, some days we're on top of the world. Other days we are just hurting, like, and it feels like we can't shake it because it just feels that the weight is too heavy. We don't have to carry that weight. We can take that burden off. We can cast it to God Himself, and we can use that daily. And I would strongly encourage you to remind yourself daily of who you are, and who you belong to. Right. So your God is bigger than anxiety. It's bigger than fear. It's bigger than doubts. It's bigger than your self confidence. It's bigger than you not believing in yourself, because God believes in you, and God has always believed in you. So if God has given you that strength, then you need to believe in you, right? You need to look to God first before you look at anything else. And I'm saying this to you, but I'm also saying it to me. So don't think I'm like, I know, like I said, I have to stress this point. Don't ever think that I'm this guy that's gonna come on a podcast and tell you what to do and then not do it myself. Because as much as I'm talking about this, I deal with this. As much as I'm telling you not to struggle with it, I've struggled with it. But the only way that I know you're gonna be able to get through, and the only way that I'm gonna be able to get through, is if we hold ourselves accountable and say, this is something that we feel, this is what we need to do. So let's go do it. I can be positive. And even in the midst of a storm, I can still find light. Even when it's cloudy, I can still try to provide sun because I know that I am the son of the chosen one. So I'm gonna have the strength, and I want to keep my faith. That's why we keep our faith in a world full of chaos, because everything around us will be chaotic. But with God, you can achieve the ultimate source of peace. So who you gonna turn to? The world or God Himself? You got to answer that question. I would say the other thing to think about as you as you deal with different things that come through your life, how do you handle each situation? So like the moment you start to feel anxiety, you could either take the time to say, okay, I recognize what this is. And this part does take time. I had to go to therapy for this because I struggle with this a lot. But this is something that I feel like has helped me, and I hope it helps you. When you start to feel even the slightest bit of anxiety, or you start to you're at that point where you know you're getting ready to spiral with the whole what ifs, that's when you have to stop. You have to ask yourself, okay, in this moment right here, right now, I'm feeling this way because of blank. So I could say I'm feeling anxious because there's a lot of people around and I wasn't prepared to be around all these people. Okay, well, what is true? The truth is that I'm standing here right now. What is not true? I've made up all these stories about everybody around me thinking they're looking at me or talking about me or saying something about me, and none of them have made eye contact with me, right? So it's like, okay, what do I know that's true? They're all here to do something. I'm here to do something. Let me go do what I need to do. They go do what they need to do. And that's it. When you can break down the truth and separate it from the what ifs and the lies, life becomes so much better. But what happens is sometimes we get so caught up in our own fantasy world through these what ifs, through these crazy scenarios, that we will believe it, and then we'll paralyze our own selves with our own fear because we have put this I guess this incarceration on our own selves, right? Like we put this stronghold on our progress and we can't even move. So why would you self-sabotage yourself? I guess that's the better question. When you recognize that you're being anxious and you know your pattern and you know your trend of what happens when you become anxious, why would you then self sabotage yourself? If you know that you're going to give yourself all these negative thoughts and you're going to start spiraling out of control with these what ifs, that's when you have to stop and you have to tell yourself what the truth is. And it will be difficult in the process because it will feel like there's this dark cloud or anxiety is raining all over your life. But the reality is that if you can just see it for face value of what it is and step back and say, you know what? I know what the truth is. I know what God says. I'm going to forcefully throw this to God and say, God, this is how I feel. I can't handle this. I need your help. He's going to help me see what the truth is. And once you discover what the truth is, all that other stuff can disappear. You don't need to carry around things that you don't need. That's just excess baggage and it weighs you down. Let God lighten the load so that way you don't have to carry these heavy burdens. If he's telling you to cast it, cast it. If he's telling you to let it go, let it go. And if he's telling you to move, move and do it the best way that you can. Let go of the things that you don't need and cast that to him. It gets better. Trust me. It's it's a process you'll have to work on. It's something you may have to do daily, and it may be something you got to practice over and over and over again. But I tell you this, it's worth it. Because then once you start deciphering what's real and what isn't, what's true and what isn't, what will help you and what won't, oh, it just makes things so much better. Um, and honestly, I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give you: pray daily. Pray daily. So I have this I want to make sure I say this the right way. I don't want to just go off, but I get disappointed when people think that prayer doesn't work, or they think it's just like a magic trick. Like you supposed to pray and then instantly it's supposed to happen. I don't like that. See, people think that prayer is a get out of jail free card. They're like, okay, well, I did this. Let me just pray on it, and then magically, poof, this will disappear. But you got to go through some stuff, because if you're gonna say you're praying and if you're gonna say that you trust in God, you're gonna deal with some trials. There's gonna be some things that test you. There's gonna be some things that will weigh heavy on you. But in those moments, who are you relying on, yourself or God? Are you trying to go through this on your own strength, or are you saying, okay, God, I know who you are, and I know that you want the best for me. You know the path, you know the plans that you have for me. So I need to follow you. And a lot of times when things get uncomfortable, we like to run away from it. I'm guilty. I'll admit that there have been times where that has happened. But when I've weathered the storm, I've realized that on the other side, I've become a better person. And so it's one of those moments of where, as we mature and as we grow, you realize that the strongest that you are is when you have God with you. You're actually weaker when you tell God to stay away and you try to do it on your own. You burn yourself out. You put yourself in very bad situations that you don't want to be in, when God could have delivered you from that multiple steps ago. So that's where you have to mature in your spirituality and pray to God, because praying to God is talking to God. So why would you not do that? Talk daily. You talk to everybody else. Why would you not pray to him? Especially if he's the one that can deliver you from certain things. He can bless you in certain things. He can provide for every need and then some. I mean, what else you want to do? What else do you want to do? What else can you do in that situation? Seriously. That's all I'm saying. Pray daily. It works. If you don't believe me, look around at people who do. Look at these different miracles that happen daily. Look at people who have been delivered from certain storms. Look at people who have had a terrible past, and they are not their past. They're doing way better now. People who you saw before, when you're like, well, how you come from that to that? You'll always be that. No, no, that's the old me. The old me's dead and gone. The new me is here. The only way I could be renewed and be restored is through the one who gives me my strength. So you're gonna sit up here and tell me prayer don't works when God can deliver people, when God was using broken people in the word, when God uses everyday people. I mean, I'll see what your rebuttal is, but I'm just gonna tell you right now, I don't think it's gonna be good, because I know who God is. Case in point. Anyway, pray daily. And one thing to remember is to always, when it comes to feeling anxious, feeling worried, being in doubt, just remember who God is and what he says. In Philippians 4:6, he tells us to not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. God's not this magical genie. It's not this, I'm going to grant you three wishes, God. God is the person who is very matter of fact. So tell me exactly what you're dealing with. Surrender it to me. Let me take care of it. But you're going to have to trust me through what I take you through. You will be better because of it. I know that can be difficult for people who want control on everything, and that might be a completely different episode talking about control. But the best way to have control is to let God take control. It'll provide you with less stress. It will cause you to not feel anxious. You might feel nervous about it in the beginning, but just remember who's holding your hand through the process. It's a good thing. Biggest things I can leave you with, if I can leave you with three key points: the first one, pray daily, every single day. And it doesn't even matter when you pray, just pray. Pray without ceasing. Talk to God daily. It could just be through worship music. It could be watching a sermon. It could just be you talking to God. Just, dear God, I thank you. And it ain't got to be this long, elaborate, like, "Ooh, God, we think." No, it ain't got to be all that. Now, if you got to pray and you got to get some stuff off your chest, do what you got to do. That's between you and God. But if you just in the moment, sometimes I'm just at work, typing on my little emails, and I might just stop and be like, "God, I just thank you for this moment." Just be thankful for everything. The small moments really build up to the bigger moment. So be thankful to God in every situation that you go through, because He didn't have to wake you up this morning. He didn't have to put air in your lungs, but He did. And if you're watching this, that means you got purpose. And if you got purpose, then you got to go after it. But talk to God daily. The second thing I would tell you to do, trust God in everything. I can look back at situations and be like, "Lord, what is this and why?" And then you look further in life and you go, "Oh, that's why." You might not understand it in the moment, but when it's all said and done, God will reveal what He needs to reveal when you need it. He's got an interesting way of doing it sometimes. I mean, you can try to question it if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it, but God's just got a way of showing you who He is. It's a pretty beautiful thing. So you gotta trust Him. It tells you, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. That's something I have to remind myself of daily, because there are times where I want to direct my own path and I'm going to crash. So I need to stop and remember my place and put God first in my heart and everything I do in my life, and really like challenge myself to do it daily. That's the biggest thing. Because then I know once it happens, everything's gonna be all right. So as much as, like I said, I keep stressing this point, I'm going after it myself. I need you to go after it too. My last thing to tell you is to walk in your truth. Walk in the truth of knowing that God has created you. You are beautifully and wonderfully made. Okay. There's no one like you. And no one can do what you do, because God has blessed you specifically with certain things that He needs you to do. He wants you to be a blessing to others. He wants you to spread the word. He wants you to live a great life. He wants you to have life and live it abundantly. So do that. And if you ever feel discouraged, or if you ever feel lost, just remember who you are. I had somebody tell me one time, never forget who you are and whose you are, and remember who created you. So the best thing to do is go back and remember that you were created in God's image. So if you ever feel like less than, just remember who created you and remember who's with you. Remember who lives inside of you, who resides in you. And that's the beautiful thing about God. He's not a pushy God, but if you ask Him to come into your life, He will. And if you say, "I don't want Him," He won't force Himself. But I would strongly recommend that you invite Him into your life. And it's a daily thing. You got to do it day by day. And it's one step at a time. Might not happen overnight. Okay. The things that you might be praying for, the truth that you're walking in, you might feel like I ain't got it right now, but that's okay. Just keep trusting, because you just might be one step away from the breakthrough. And I would hate for you to give up when the next step you were going to take was going to be the best step ever. So walk in your truth. Pray daily. Trust God. Walk in truth. Okay. Okay. I think that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Overthinking Thoughts pod. Feel free to find me on socials. I'm on Instagram at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm also on TikTok at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I would love for you to subscribe to the YouTube page. We're on YouTube at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. And if you want to stream us, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Of course, Overthinking Thoughts Pod. Look for the logo that was designed by my brother, Ivy the Great. And as always, always continue to walk in your light that God has provided you with. Do the best that you can every single day, and just take it one day at a time. Okay. That's all I can ask. That's all we can do, is the best effort that we can give. All right. All right. Y'all be safe. Y'all be blessed. And just remember, I believe in you. Now go believe in yourself. To Ed with the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. We out.